All right. Well, I wanted to add a little bit of banjo because the irony is not lost on me that my last video was by far my most popular video on a banjo channel with absolutely no banjo in it. So I wanted to make sure I fitted in at least some banjo in today's video, although for most of today I'm just going to be doing a little bit of talking. For those who don't know me or haven't seen the last video, my name's Mark. I run a YouTube channel called 2000 Hours of Banjo with the purpose of, well, initially just sharing videos with my family, but it's turned into basically a documentary of a middle-aged man with no music experience trying to learn how to play a banjo while still working a 9-to-5er, practicing about an hour a day, hoping that by the time I hit 2,000 hours, that I'll have some level of competency in playing. Now, last week, I cut and released a video that I was sure was the worst video I've ever put out on my channel. And surprise, surprise, it turned out to be, I guess you can say, measurably one of my better performing videos. And the video topic was on why, well, not really why, I'll get to that today, but that I walked out on a jam session. I quit it. But as you can tell, I did not quit playing the banjo. Now, what I thought I would do this week is kind of do a breakdown into what actually happened the night that I walked out and why I walked out. I think that's kind of important to cover, and I've had some time to think about it, the significance of what I did and why I did it. Now, when I made the video, everything was very fresh. I had just gotten home from the jam session. It was still going by the time I got home. I vented to my very understanding wife for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I came into here. This is my little banjo sanctuary. It's just a corner of a room in my house. I flipped on the floodlight or the key light or whatever you call it, turned the camera on, and my wife immediately said, "You're not recording a video, are you? Like, maybe let it rest a bit and maybe tomorrow." But I felt compelled to document my feelings of how I felt in that moment. Now, again, I started this YouTube channel really just to share videos with my family. But I quickly realized that there's not really much out there when it comes to fully documenting one's journey on learning a musical instrument. So I started to feel that this channel was unique and different, unvarnished. That's why none of my videos have any edits, so you see all my mistakes. And I'm finding that the journey of learning an instrument has its ups, has its downs, like what I recorded last week, and is mostly, though, kind of a grind. But I want to capture it all. And it was tempting last week to not record a video. It was very tempting to just, okay, this is really bad, let's skip this. But in the spirit of what this channel has become, no, we got to record all the bumps and bruises as well as the successes. I think it's only fair to give a comprehensive picture of what trying to learn an instrument is like, either as an adult or I guess in any fashion. So that leads me to today, and what I want to talk about today is what were the things that led up to me leaving that jam session. Now, I've been practicing for about 2 years now, averaging at this point about an hour a day, although I did have to take some time off for an injury. So last year was practicing a little bit more than an hour a day, almost an hour and a half, to catch up on the 3 or so months that I had to take off to recover from an injury. But on average, for 2 years, an hour a day. And I do have an instructor. I'll get to that too in a little bit. I see him once a week, and in my opinion, he's a very good instructor. Now, I've really enjoyed practicing and learning the banjo in my little corner, isolated from the world. I've been very happy with my progress. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed with how far I've come along in the past 2 years. However, when I try to take the skills that I've learned in the past 2 years into a jam, I was unpleasantly surprised. Now, I should say that I did not let my instructor know that I was going to go to a jam. And even though I did come home from that jam cursing everybody involved with this project, including myself and unfortunately my instructor, he is not to blame in this at all. I didn't tell him what I was doing. And I finally did tell him last week. In fact, we sat down and we watched last week's video together. Let me tell you, that was hard. I'm having a hard time rewatching that video, let alone with my instructor, but we did. And to my surprise, we both at the end kind of laughed at it. So that was nice and healthy, I think. But he did not know, and he said I was not ready because we haven't discussed this, and there's skills you need to learn before you go jumping into a jam session, which I now know and understand. And I will be doing another follow-up video on this, on the path forward, on what I plan on doing after this experience. Now, the reason that I still went to the jam is because, for the most part, there was a breakdown in communication. And what I mean by that is I called the music shop where they hold the jam, and I talked to the individuals there that run it. And I told them I'm a beginner with about 2 years of experience, practicing about an hour a day. I know a couple of songs. And I was wondering if this jam is beginner friendly. And they said, yes, it is beginner friendly. And that's where the breakdown in communication was. My definition of what a beginner was, not their definition of what a beginner was. On that first day that I showed up for the first jam, now I went to 4 and I quit number 4. That's the one I walked out of. I got there really early. I sat down with one of the jam leads who works at the music shop. Again, we discussed my experience, we discussed some of the rules of the jam session, and that was it. I was off and running. But there were clear signs right off the bat that I was out of my element. Um, right from the beginning, I didn't understand a lot of the vernacular that was being tossed around, no, mostly the numbers, the Nashville numbering system, which I wasn't too familiar with. Obviously, they were talking about different keys, but they were throwing out phrases like this is, a 1-4-5 with a couple of twos mixed in and so forth. And I didn't know what that meant. Another clue that that was pretty immediate was when I came to my turn to play and I was going to play Boil Them Cabbage Down. I honestly thought for a second there, it's like, okay, I'm going to impress these guys and, play Boil Them Cabbage kind of fast. And it was for me. But the first thing the jam lead said when I started was, can you play that a little faster? It's like, yeah, I can, but it's going to start to get ugly really quick. On jam session number 2, there were more clues. On this particular jam session, it came down to my turn and I picked Cripple Creek. And the question was thrown to me, are you going to sing or is this instrumental? And that blew me away. Like, this was the beginning of what culminated in the walkout on Jam 4, which was, why I'm a beginner. Why are you asking a beginner if I can sing along? That feels like it's kind of an advanced skill. Or are beginners supposed to be able to sing along? And I'm just not a beginner like I thought I was. So I was a little irritated by that, but I persevered and I went to jam session number 3. Now, jam session 3, I have a video on it, and at the end of the jam, I felt like I got some value out of it. But for the most part, on jam session number 3, I was well over my head. The other members of the jam session were playing way too fast in keys I didn't understand, using language I didn't understand, and that was getting more stressful. I already knew by jam session number 3 that I needed to learn the Nashville numbering system. I needed to learn how to transpose in different keys. I needed to get my speed up if I was going to play along. I needed to learn the neck of the banjo quite a bit. I needed to learn backup. Like, the list was growing. There was a lot of things that I understood. Okay, there's a lot of skills here that I do not have. That unfortunately I was starting to think that I should have. Because again, I had asked if this was beginner friendly and they said it was. So I started to think that the 2 years that I've been working up to that point was a failure. Like, I hadn't done anything to learn the things I need to learn as a beginner, as expressed by the folks in the jam session. Now, jam number 4, that was the one I walked out. I feel that by the time I hit jam number 4, I've learned just about everything I could learn from a jam session at this point, at least that jam session, which was what I don't know and what I need to learn. But, I wanted to stick it out. This was a huge jam session. Now, the size of the jams leading up to that had been growing. The first one I went to, there was about 8 people, which seemed okay. There was about 10 or so people in the second jam session, but then it grew to 13 in the third jam session. Jam session number 4, easily 20 people, 18 to 20, let's say 18 to 20. There was a lot of people. We were crammed in there in the space, and there was, it was a lot of talent. And I'm on an email list with this jam session. And the goal from the jam leader was that we were going to start working on 3-part harmonies in 2025, which I hate to admit it, but I'm still trying to learn what harmony is versus melody versus rhythm. So I didn't know what the heck a 3-part harmony was, that's for sure. But the jam started, okay? And the first song was in the key of E, which I was not familiar with at the time. The person who picked the song said this is easy. It's just a 1-4-5, which I now understand to be E, A, B chords, but I didn't know in the moment. And off everybody went. And I was just sitting here like this. Now, there were a couple of banjo players in this jam session, and I was watching them to see what they were doing. But they were hitting chord shapes that I wasn't familiar with. They were working E chords kind of midway up the neck. I mean, I know A and I know B. I didn't know E, but that they weren't hitting these chords. I guess I should be able to hit these chords, but I was mostly just watching. And then I saw the jam lead. We made eye contact. And now the jam lead is different than the person who was playing the song. The jam lead started to introduce everybody, picked one person to start, and that person was playing their song. However, the jam lead, who's also a banjo player, stood up, walked in front of everybody right through the middle of the circle, stopped at me, and was like, all right, this is easy. You can do this. This is where I was getting really frustrated because no, this is not easy for me. This is going way too fast. I think you're doing E, A. I don't know what the other chord is, and you're working halfway up the neck, and I don't know what you're doing. And I was just embarrassed and frustrated at the same time. Um, and then he went back and he sat down, and I was like, yeah, sorry, I just don't know. I don't know how to mimic what you're doing because it's too fast and you're working in an area of the neck that I'm not familiar with. Then it went to the next song. And again, it was it wasn't in the key of G. I think it was D or something like that. And I was again just holding the neck of my banjo, and I was looking around to see what people were doing. Well, I think I unfortunately made eye contact with the person leading the song because the fiddle player next to me turned to me and said, "You're taking the next lead. Are you taking the next lead?" And that's when I heard the laughter. Now, I get it. That means there's a jerk sitting near me that's laughing at my lack of skill. But hold that thought for a moment because I was that jerk. I was the one laughing. I literally laughed in this poor lady's face at her preposterous notion that I could carry any type of solo whatsoever in this jam session. And I felt immediately horrific at, at doing that. And that was it. I was like, I'm embarrassing myself. I'm being a jerk to other people. This is not fun. I just quietly stood up, packed up my crap, and walked out. And that's when I got home and, and vented to my wife, and then made the video shortly after that. So those were the events leading up to why I walked out. Now, an important lesson that I learned was A, I should have let my instructor know what my plans are. Now, I'm not the best at communicating with my instructor. I could be a lot better. Heck, I cut a video almost, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months ago. on why I lie, why I lie to my instructor sometimes. And this time I wasn't lying, I guess, unless you count lying by omission, which is I didn't tell him what my plans were. And this is, part and parcel of this entire journey. Now, I know, or I should say, I knew nothing of bluegrass music when I picked up the banjo. I honestly don't know what compelled me to pick a banjo as a Christmas gift in return to me getting my wife a guitar on that same Christmas. I wasn't into bluegrass. I wasn't into old time music. I wasn't really into country music either, which also, occasionally has some banjo in it. But I picked a banjo. Now, I'm going to show you something really quick. And this is where I honestly am quite fascinated about how the instrument picks the person. This, it may surprise you, is my guitar. I own a guitar. This is a guitar that one of my brothers got me probably 12 years ago by now. I've had it for a very long time. I've really never picked it up. I never played it. I've never tried to practice it. And even though I think it's a great gesture from my brother, and it sits in its stand next to the TV, collecting dust, and is more a piece of furniture than anything, or decoration than anything, I've never had any interest in learning to play the guitar. The banjo, however, for some reason, I can't put it down. I really can't. And many of you have stated, and I certainly think this is correct, that the only difference between someone who's really good at playing an instrument or good at anything and somebody who's bad at it is that the person who's good at it didn't quit, didn't give up, and kept practicing until they eventually became good. For some reason, with the banjo, I had that connection. I have that connection. I looked forward to picking up my banjo every single day. I'd be at work, I'd be daydreaming about it. I couldn't wait home to get home and practice. Banjo started making me daydream about one day having an old man band after I retire and taking the stage at some point. Something that I never thought I would do. Something I certainly didn't start daydreaming about when I got the guitar. I have this connection with the banjo. I really, really enjoy it. And it doesn't even feel like a commitment. Practices, I pick up the banjo and an hour's gone like that. An hour and a half has gone like that. Sometimes 2 hours have gone and I hardly even notice it. And I don't get tired of it. Even during the grind where you're just doing repetition after repetition. The reason I was so upset from walking out is because it was the first time in 2 years where I questioned, why am I doing this? It's a thought that never came to my mind. I just wanted to do it. But after that experience, I had a glimpse of not wanting to do this anymore. And that's when I realized that whatever this thing is, this connection I have with my banjo, it's precious, it's unique, but it's fragile. So I need to protect it. So I need to communicate with my instructor better. I need to make sure of what it is that I'm walking into so that I do not tarnish or hurt or damage or break the connection I have with my banjo. Anyway, I hope that helps explain why I ended up walking out and why it was so dramatic. Next video, I'm going to go over
what are the next steps? What do I plan on doing moving forward? How am I going to get past this? And I'll tell you, already, I feel like I have. I've picked up the banjo every single day this past week, and I've practiced, and that's good. All right, everybody, I'll catch you next time. Bye.